Okay, guys, welcome again to the Born Rich program. You know, it's a really exciting chapter, this one. As I say, we're moving forward into the nitty gritty of this book now and this program as well. Really excited that you all, are listening in and really getting involved in these ideas. I'm sure by now, I've spoken to a few of you. You're really starting to advance what you've already got in your little stockpile of information, and it's just going very, very deep. And you're understanding a lot of things, why you may have been struggling before, and how just to help yourself moving forward to allow the stress not to be there, with let go and let God, and what your actual goals are specifically for each time. Goals work very well for me, and it just gives you some direction for you to work with. So I hope it's all starting to compound all this information like it should be. The more you repeat these ideas as well, the better it gets. Believe me, honestly. Every time I do this program myself, the more the information goes involved in myself as well. And I just keep learning more and more every time I do. Just go back on these chapters. It's very exciting for me. I'm looking forward to the value we're going to get in today's session, guys. Now, just a quick recap of the law of attraction and vibration as well. Now, this is a really big chapter, and this is where it goes a little bit to the things you weren't really taught in school. Very exciting for me, and it's a really true one. And you'll find yourself talking about frequencies, vibrations, and that everything is energy, and you understand that as well. I mean, I'm sure you already know that, but you understand that if everything is energy, we can draw energy towards ourselves. The universe actually works in rhythm, and the law of gender as well. And if anything is energy, we can attract what we need to have in our lives by really thinking about it, by physically working towards it. We're unconsciously attracting the things that we want into our lives. And we just develop these habits and start working towards them. I myself recently had a look at my previous goals, and they were so ingrained in my mind at that point. When I looked back, I actually achieved all of them. And this is because I'd actually got it so ingrained in my subconscious. I was working towards them without even thinking about it. It was just a habit. It had become who I was. Now, it was very difficult at first to get this habit. I thought I was really struggling, like learning to ride a bike. But once the idea is actually implemented and you actually figure out this is what I want to do and set up enough belief and strengthen those goals enough, the power they've got is unbelievable. And the image as well, like I just mentioned, having the goals there can create an image, and just physically thinking about what you want to have, placing the image there is actually pulling something towards yourself. If you want to get a new car and you start looking at new cars and you start going to showrooms and checking them out, seeing how much they actually cost, you're eventually going to actually put an idea in your mind that I can afford this. We're going to make enough money to be able to afford it to actually get this car that you actually want. It's a very exciting time. And a very exciting chapter because you realise a lot of things, and it is kind of, if you don't understand it, it doesn't make a difference all of the time. I didn't at first, and there's still certain things where I do struggle with, but it doesn't matter anymore. And that's a big thing I actually overcome because it works. You don't need to understand it all the time. If it does work, have the affirmations and work towards them and be thinking about the ideas, and they do get attracted to you all. Now, this one, guys, is one of my favourites. The risk takers in life. Who are they? And what is this chapter all about? Very excited to get deep into it. Going through a lot of good, valuable stuff. It's going to be really effective for you moving forward. Just little tidbits and little tips of how to overcome things that you might have been struggling with, developing these habits, and just going for it. Things that sometimes you might not be able to go for all the time. You might want to plan things out a bit more and set yourself up. And we're going to go really deep into this chapter, and it's a really good one, and I'm excited for it. Now, how to become a risk taker in life, to do anything. There's a lot of people just stand on the sidelines. They don't really do too much, and they're just waiting for the perfect opportunity, which unfortunately will never happen. Now, you've got to ask yourself the question of what are you good at? Already, what are you good at? And what do you know you can do? And also, what do you know you would want to do? And figure these things out. And if you're good at something already, it's not as much of a risk to go all the way in with it. You know, if you're trying to set up a new business and you're really good with people, for example, it's not going to be a massive risk to go towards a business where you're working in a very social environment. Or if you want to go out for a night out, you know, it's not a risk to go out because you're already a people person. It's not going to be as stressful. You know, what do you know you can do? What are the skills you have? And what do you know you would want to do? Something that, you know, we're not just going to take blind risks and do anything we want, like jumping off a cliff. If you don't really want to do it, there's not much point. But what do you know you'd want to do? And if it's a business that you really want to succeed, is it worth taking a risk? Because that risk could reward you having a job that you really would want to have. Not just stuck in something you're not really sure. You're just bogged down and you feel pushed to go to work instead of being pulled because you want to go there. Use your abilities to your advantage. Take the risks that make a lot of sense. And we'll go into that a bit later on. You'll understand what I mean by that. Because everyone is a risk taker at some level. You know, we're all taking risks. I'm sure you've done something even today that for some people would be a risk. You know, you left the house to go to the shops. Now, some people that'd be a risk. They'd be scared of what could happen, scared of getting a cold, scared of, you know, getting lost or anything like that. It could be a risk. It could be a more, you know, a higher up the echelon of the risks. It could be, you know, investing a couple of £100 into a program for yourself that's going to advance your knowledge and really help you build and become the person you need to be, help your business grow. Invest in a personal trainer. A lot of people, that could be a risk because how can you afford that? How can you afford to spend that much money to better yourself? But a lot of people who do, you know, invest in themselves that way, we said they can't afford not to. So everyone is a risk taker at some level, and you understand that once you actually do big things. Sometimes, you know, I've done paragliding, for example, myself, and the first time that we did it, we had about 4 or 5 hours where we're just practicing with these big parachutes behind us, and we're running along, and we're trying to lift the sail up, if you can imagine this in your minds. You know, trying to get the control of the paraglide, and then once we got a little bit of control, we go up to this hill, and you know, it's quite a steep hill, but we climb up it, and then we'd run down the hill, we'd pick up speed, and towards the middle and the last third, we pick up enough speed and momentum to actually lift ourselves off the ground and have a little fly on the paraglide. This is really cool. Now, the next week when we went back, we were told, right, everyone's ready to move on to the next level. So I was like, fantastic. So, by the way, we're in a mountainous area in New Zealand here. Lots of mountains around. So we're literally against the mountain. So we drive up the side of the mountain, set our paraglides up the same way we've been doing on the side of the hill. And guy just says, yep, okay, everyone's ready now. Let's go and jump off the end of this mountain. Now, at the time, I thought it was hilarious. I thought, what's this guy talking about? I'm looking over the edge, and it's literally a drop down. We're running off the edge of this mountain, and we're at the top. We're like at a really high level of this mountain where they start skiing down from when it's winter time. And I'm thinking, what's this guy on about? We've only jumped off a hill the day before, the week before. We only jumped off a hill, so now we're jumping off a mountain. So I'm absolutely terrified, and I'm thinking, right, okay. And a couple of people ahead go, and then there's me and my friend who took the course, and we're like, right. I wanted to go first. I did not want to be the last person jumping. So I was like, right, I'll go. So he said, just do the same things you've been doing, and you'll be fine. So I put a lot of the fear behind me, because I wanted to look like I was confident in front of this other guy that I was with, and two, I just wanted to get it done, and I knew it would be very cool. So anyways, I'm stood there, set up, looking at the end of the abyss to my certain death, and I just run, do the things I've been taught, the wind catches the sail, and I just start flying, and it's the most unbelievable feeling I ever had. I'm sat in this seat, and there's birds flying around me, not in a scary way, just a couple of birds, and I'm literally maybe a couple of 1,000 feet off the ground. flying around, looking at the beautiful landscape, and that was unbelievable. One of the best times of my life. Very, very, very exciting. And that is a risk. But I trained for it, so I was prepared. It was just a scary thing. And then after that, I did it a couple of times. I did 5 or 6 lessons after that where we were doing different skills and tricks and techniques. And it wasn't so difficult. I didn't feel as much of a risk because I've done it before. We even walked up to this place where I had about 10 steps to be able to walk, to build the momentum off. And I literally walked because the wind was in my face. I was able to just walk off the edge, and that was a very steep drop down and a little bit dangerous, to be fair, as we were quite beginners. But I didn't feel it as a risk because I already knew what to do. So the risks that you do now become easier once you actually do them and you understand them, which is something we're going to go into a lot later on. You got to separate yourself from the crowd and take the risk sometimes because you're going to get the rewards. Who does things that others would not? Maybe it's just going to the gym for the first time, or gonna go out socially, talking to that boy or the girl at the bar for the first time. It gets easier, but that's a risk. Something that you're not sure of doing. You're pushing your comfort zone. And as we said, once we stay in a comfort zone, nothing really grows. It only disintegrates once you stay where you are. So you got to push the boundaries and become a risk taker to get the things that you need. And if you go more specific into your business, you need to be a risk taker to invest in some money into your business, help it grow, and spread the word. To build it and become a risk taker. Understanding the fear of failure or rejection is not always necessary. And, people that push through their fears. And what is a risk? Anything and everything can be considered a risk. Because to somebody, the easiest task for you would be a risk for them, as I said earlier on. Something that gives you butterflies in your stomach, makes you a bit nervous, makes you hesitate. There you go. And usually the more scared we are about a specific activity, the more we care about it, the more we want to do. Now obviously jumping off a cliff is definitely a fear, but something that we're scared of is in talking to that girl or the guy at the bar. We care because we want to get to know them, they're very pretty, good looking, and we want to hopefully have a partner and have a relationship with somebody. Building a business, we're nervous to get started because it's something we do want to build and become ourselves and work from home. But, what if it does go wrong? Because I'm sure you already know this, but I'll reveal a bit of the curtain toward the mystery of life. It's going to go wrong. Here's Michael Jordan. Now, he was unbelievable. He was in the American team when they played against a couple of people in the world for an exhibition, and every person in that team said that Michael was levels and levels ahead of everyone on that team. He just was like, an all-star compared to a school kid, and they were the school kids. And they were already the best in their game, and the best players in the world, and he was just so much better than them. He said he missed more than 9,000 shots in his career, lost almost 300 games, 26 times of being trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. He failed over and over and over again, but that is why I succeed, because he continues to take that risk to better himself, to become the person he needs to be. Self-test. If you take everything that you see deemed to be a failure or something that's held you back as a learning lesson, you will achieve so much. Especially when it feels bad, because it's tough, and you can get into your own little disempowering thoughts of thinking, God, it's just not working out for me, what's going on? It is a test, and say to yourself, this is a learning lesson, what can I learn from it? I can learn not to do this thing, and then that's okay. When you come into the same situation again in the future, it's not going to be as difficult, and you're probably going to figure out how to do it properly. And once you've done it, you've overcome something, you've learned a lesson, and you become stronger, and you're more intelligent in your business, on yourself, in your health, your wealth, or your happiness. Now, this is where we are currently, where we're all at, everyone in the world. Our current paradigms, a set of beliefs that are keeping you getting the same result and seeing the world in a certain way. Our conditioning, this is where we are, X-type thinking, X-type habits and paradigms, and X-type actions, and there's our emotional mind, the subconscious mind. It's been called a few things: the universal mind, the emotional mind. The ancient Greeks called it the heart of hearts, because it's where we feel from. That's why we do the things we do, because we believe that they're right. And where the reason you're on this call or listening to it on a recording is because you want to change the results in your life. You want to move out of these X-type thoughts into a different pattern and learn something new. I had a belief myself where asked me 2 years ago if I said to me, what do you want for a meal? I'd have said, I'd like some meat, some potatoes and some vegetables, please. And I'd be very confident with that, and I'd be very happy, and that'd be something that I wouldn't have no problem with. And someone would say to me, well, how about going vegetarian? I would literally probably laugh at them and think, that's not something I want to do. That was my conditioning, that was my belief. I was going to eat meat. Well, how else are you going to become strong? How else am I going to get my protein value? How else am I going to sustain my body and not become really thin and skinny and wiry without eating this meat? Now, if you ask me now, it's a totally different story. And it took a lot of thinking. I was trying to go through my energy levels, and I felt a bit down, I felt a bit run down, I felt tired, I literally felt like I had a lack of something inside of me. And I was very gassy, a lot of stomach acid, lots of indigestion and heartburn, like a lot of it. I used to eat Rennies like they were sweets, and Gaviscon like it was juice. And something changed. Something in my mind told me vegetarian. I'd read a couple of books about it, and I tried and played around for a couple of times, but I couldn't break the habit. And this is what we're going to go into. It's very pivotal for this point, actually. It works really well with what we're going to show you in a second. And I watched this video once that really changed my mind. And there's a guy that heals people through food. You might have heard him talk about it before, and it's called the Hippocrates Institute. And they literally just heal people through food. And it makes a lot of sense, because you wouldn't put a rubbish fuel into your car. You wouldn't put diesel into a petrol car because it's the wrong sort of fuel. Same with ourselves. We can run on different types of fuel, but obviously it's not the best sort of fuel for ourselves. Now, I decided to go on an ultimate health thing. There's a lot of nutrients in live food and raw food. A lot of enzymes are still in there. So I went down the path of just eating a raw vegan diet, and it changed my life completely. And now my beliefs have completely changed. And I still eat meat here and there, but my beliefs about it are a lot different. I don't have to have it, and I rarely will have it. I won't feel like I need to have it. And it's almost annoying going to the shops, because there are a lot less vegetarian options I'd like to have. So I make a lot of my food at home. And my beliefs now have changed. And that's an emotional thing. I believe, and I've in my heart of hearts. And now I'm doing the right thing for myself, because I feel differently. Feeling and paradigms. Now, it also gets our X-type results. Obviously, our thinking becomes our habits become our actions, and our actions get our results. So X-type thinking equals X-type results. Absolutely makes sense. Now, when you get a new idea, now let's call it a Y idea, or Y-type thinking. Now, ideas like this are all around us. Y idea could be anything different. Now, to get into our conscious mind, we have to accept it. And we can accept or reject anything. Now, if we get an idea in our heads, something comes to someone that gives us an idea and says, why don't you do this? Why don't you become vegetarian? Why don't you go on a diet? Why don't you build a business? Why don't you? Anything. Now, if we don't like the idea, obviously, we would naturally reject it. And that's our reasoning and faculty. Makes a lot of sense. But when we're in this X-type thinking, you might think to yourself, why is this happening? Why am I getting these results? Because you're not actually accepting any new ideas that are different. You're still doing the same paradigms, and yes, that they're protected as well, because they're there to look after us and to make sure we don't make any mistakes or don't hurt ourselves. However, it is a form of bondage. It's holding us back from what we could actually have. And, why ideas are all around us. Now, once we get a why idea that seems to make sense, something that is all around us, people say, why don't you start your own business, work from home? Why don't you move abroad and travel the world for a few years, getting experience working with different people, and then money as you go, being your own boss, taking a job wherever, working in bars, just having a lot of fun. If you stick at a rat race, get out of it and have a lot of fun. Start an affiliate marketing company and get residual income. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Earn money while you sleep. Okay. And then live your lifestyle you want. Fantastic. Now, with our reasoning, we figure out that it makes sense. And then we get the results. We're still on the same results because actually we haven't actually changed anything. We've just got an idea in our heads. We're still getting the X type results. But with our reasoning, we're thinking about it. However, with reason, everything that we know is challenged. Same with me and my diet. So to do a new thing is very difficult. And this is where conflict happens. We get a why idea that makes sense. We accept it into our conscious mind. And then we turn over to our subconscious mind, our emotional mind. And obviously we still have our old paradigms in there, our old bondage, thoughts and habits and conditions. But now there's this new idea in there as well. We're trying to take action on this new thing. And once we've accepted the idea is a good thing, and we take action, we send our body into this XY vibration. We're doing the two different things. Like, we're still eating food, but now we're eating a vegetarian sort of food, but we're still thinking about meat. Obviously, it's a new thing. Or if we're starting a new business, we're thinking it's a really good idea. But as we've probably all experienced, when we're doing something new, it's difficult. If you start writing if you're right-handed and you write left-handed, even just do it right now. Pick up a pen with your left hand and write your name. On a piece of paper, write your name. Now, how unnatural does that feel? You've got a Y idea, you've accepted it, you're writing it, you're using your body, which is an XY vibration now, and you're trying to do it, and you're getting frustrated, you're getting this conflict, you're like, what's going on? This feels completely unnatural. I don't like doing it. Or if you're starting a new business, as I say, or going up to talking to a girl, it makes sense to go up to this lady or guy and talk to them. However, we do reach the terror barrier. Happens for all of us in a lot of experiences. The doubt creeps in, the worry, fear, being anxious. Oh God, what's going on? So what happens is this conflict hits the terror barrier, turns us around, all the way back to our old type thinking, back to the bondage state. We got rid of the idea. And I'm sure this happened to all of you. That's why diets fail. We go back to what we used to do. Get a new job and we don't like it, we go back to what we used to do. Now, to get through this barrier, because this can happen a lot of times, you can have an idea again and again, and then you're going through this repetitive cycle, having this idea, gets to the end, and once again, we go back to the beginning. God, it wasn't what I thought it was. Do it again, go back to the beginning. But now we're strengthening the idea, we're starting to have some form of understanding. Now with understanding, we have a breakthrough. Because once we start to understand, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I need to do to move forward. I'm going to stick with this. Because we'll always hit the terror barrier. Unless we're very, very, very committed to the idea initially, it's going to probably end up with a struggle. And we'll hit it. We might not go down to the beginning, but we'll go back to reasoning. And we'll start thinking about the idea again. But once we actually hit the understanding point, we actually realise that this is going to be something that's really good for us. This is where the idea actually becomes part of us, and we change our thinking from an XY thinking to a Y type thinking. It develops into our conscious mind. We accepted it. It goes to our heart of hearts. We believe in it. And it takes our actions, which get the right type of results, which we want. And we get freedom. That is what freedom is. You know, we do something new. And it's brilliant once you break through that barrier. I'm sure you've all had that experience. It's like me with the paragliding. Felt fantastic. But I definitely hit the terror barrier. And I could have easily stopped and gone back to bondage. But my reasoning told me that it was going to make a lot of sense. I understood that what was going to happen is probably safe. So I broke through, and now I had a different type of thinking, different set of beliefs, and now different results. So when you're taking a risk, this is the steps that you're going to come across. And to move forward, you need to really go through and believe it. And understand that it's a process, because you might hit conflict and go back to bondage a few times. Chances are you probably will hit the bondage and go back a few times. But it's a case of understanding that you're going to get there eventually with enough belief. And this is why we go a lot into, you know, your thoughts tend to your results. Because if you believe something enough initially and you reason with it enough initially, the conflicts that you get in won't be as powerful enough to stop you doing something, because you understand how much something means to you. You understand that going on this diet is going to change your life. It's going to make you the person that you need to become. The object of life is not to be on the side of majority, but to escape, finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Now, I love Marcus Aurelius, very famous Stoic in the Roman Empire, and I love Stoicism as well. You know, very little is needed to make a happy life. It's all within yourself, in your way of thinking. You know, the brilliant quotes by this guy. Fantastic way of living as well. You know, be your own person. Don't follow the ranks, because if you're following what everyone else does, you're going to get the same results everyone else is getting. Not just starting your own business, but the way you think about things, the way you see things. Be open-minded. Actually think about things. Instead of just responding to ideas like everyone else does. Think about them and think, does this actually make sense to me? Do I want this idea in my life? Because if not, you need to change it to get the different results that you want to have in your life. Now, what is the difference between a risk taker and irresponsible people? Close, right? It's close. There is obviously a matter of, you know, there is a difference. And there definitely is, because, you know, if you're just taking risks blindly and doing everything, or going to a casino like this guy and putting a lot of money into a risk that's 50-50, or definitely with roulette, you know, it's 35 to 1, 36 to 1. Very big risk for, you know, what's the backup plan? Now, these guys on the left-hand side, very successful people, you know, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, them sort of people, very successful, and they take risks, but it's calculated risks. They've thought it through. They believe in it, but have also planned ahead. You know, Richard Branson was actually able to set up a plan with, you know, when Virgin Airways was starting, and he actually bought all the airplanes with like a catch in the contract of if it didn't work out within 6 months, he could sell them all back to the company. In case it didn't work out, he had a backup plan. It's a case of taking a risk to set up this company, but he had a plan to back it up as well. You know, he's thought it through and he's believed it's going to happen. Now, if you're scared about making the leap, it's also how, like everyone else who's on the similar path, he's got the same thinking. Now, what would happen if you were to risk it? Are you going to be in a different position to them? Are you going to learn more from them? Now, Tony Robbins, a great mentor of mine through the books and his audio and videos I've seen countless times, when he was developing himself, he was trying to learn how to be a speaker. Now, a lot of speakers would speak at engagements maybe a handful of times a year, maybe half a dozen times at the most a year, at different events all over the country or city or wherever. Now, he made it imperative to himself that he needed to work on this and needed to become a better speaker. So he spoke 3 times a day. He was getting the same lessons in 1 week that most speakers were getting in 1 year. And he became the speaker that he is today. Through this, you know, he took a risk, but he kept on risking and risking and risking, and made it an easier thing for him to do. and to become the person that you wanted to become. So don't be scared about taking. I mean, it's fair enough to be scared because it's good and it tells you you're on the right track. But these risks are important, and to figure out, is this a risk that everyone else is thinking about as well? If I keep on practicing doing this technique, am I going to separate myself from the masses and become unique? Become the best speaker in the world? Because I'm sure you said the first few, a lot of the times he was speaking initially, it was very difficult and struggled. But what happened if you speak 6 times a year and you struggle? You're probably not going to speak again because you've had a lot of knockbacks. But if you practice and practice and practice, then you get better at it and you become more confident. How do you become a confident person at something? Anything that you do, anything that you're good at, how do you become a confident person at it? Through practice. Taking the initial risk and then do it again and again. Me as a chef, I take risks all the time in food. I'm balancing a lot of different things at the same time and cooking a lot of different things at the same time. Upwards of, tens of orders at the same time. Dozens of meals at it's the same time cooking. Different meats and different temperatures. Juggling a lot of different things. It's all risk. But once I've practiced it, it's like second nature to me. I don't even need to think about it a lot of the time. It's just natural. Because I've done it again and again and again. To become more confident at something, take the risk and practice it. And what's holding us back in this day and age? Could you quit your, what's the worst thing that can happen? Could you quit your job and still survive? Yes, you could, 100%. My experience travelling, I saved up to go to Australia. Now, this is a big risk for me. I saved up a lot of money and went away to a different country, one-way ticket. I was going to travel, get a job, and live the life of my dreams, meet new people. Now, when I got there, I was meeting people living in hostels who had like £200 and no job, and not even looking for a job. So I freaked out. Can you take that much of a risk? And they were not bothered about it at all. They were very calm. And I was like, God, how can you be doing this to yourself? Now, eventually, of me travelling after about a year and just every year of travelling, you get into the mentality of understanding the risks and knowing there's plenty of, if you want to work, there's a job out there for you if you need it enough. Especially me being a chef, I can get a job anywhere. Everyone needs to eat. There was one point when I drove across from Western Australia to East Australia with a convoy of friends, a few cars and a few vans and stuff. We all drove across Australia over a few weeks. Had a brilliant time, and I had literally about a couple of $100 to my name. Enough money for rent for a few days in a hotel, or in a hostel even. In the cheapest hostel, I could have stayed there for a few days. I had no job, and I spent the last amount of money on food and alcohol. I was shameless, I just wanted to have a good time, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I knew for a fact that I could get a job pretty quick and pay my bills, no problem. So when I got to Melbourne, I got there, checked into the hostel, paid a few days' rent. After that, started looking for a job pretty quickly, and went to the reception office at the hostel and said to the guy, listen, I don't have any money, but I will give you my passport as collateral for now. And obviously, I'm not going to go anywhere if you have my passport. I'm an English person. That's what I need to get out of the country. Have the passport. I've got a job now. I didn't. I was looking for a job. I was going to get one. And in less than a month, I'll pay you enough rent for what I've stayed. And the guy, obviously, there's a lot of people like me. So, yeah, no problem. No problem. I had no money. And it wasn't a problem. I was still living. I was still having the rest of enjoying my time. I had enough money to buy, beans and bread and what I could scavenge from the kitchen. They had a free food section which I just raided every day. People that would leave food from travellers. You just live off that pretty much. And that's a risk, but I became used to the risk. There's a lot of risks that we think are impossible to achieve and to do, but it's just something your comfort zone, your ex type thinking. There's nothing holding you back in this day and age. You can do anything. And are you stuck in a rut? Are you stuck in a position where you're doing the same stuff, getting the same results, you're pretty depressed, and you try a few new things, but it doesn't really ever seem to make a difference? You're reading a lot of books, a lot of information, and that's it. Now, I'll ask you this. I've released a video recently on Facebook about this. Now, are you applying what you're learning? Really? Because if you're anything like I used to be, I used to read a lot of books, a lot of information, be around a lot of people, and not really apply anything I was learning. I'd be reading it and think I'd learned something, and then I'd go away and be like, yeah, fantastic. Now, if you're in a classroom in school and you just listen to the teacher for half an hour to an hour in the lesson and really listen to them and really absorb all the information, yeah, fantastic, I've learned this. I got a really good value from this class. When you go away and you do your next class and your next class, you come back the next day, have you learned everything and applied everything from the day before? Doubt it. And then when she asks you the questions from the day before, you have to think, oh God, I've forgotten about that. I didn't write it down. I was just listening. Same thing when you're reading, you're learning. Apply what you're learning into your own life. Get out of the rut. Because the only way to change what you're doing is by changing your thinking. And if you just read a lot and never do any action, you need to do the opposite. You need to read a little bit and take a lot of action. And develop these habits and change the things. Because it's going to be tough at first, but to get out of the rut, you need to start thinking differently and acting differently. And taking these risks every now and again. Because once you become used to taking the risks, that becomes a habit in itself. You see a risk, and you accept it, and you move forward with it. Because you know that's something you need to do to advance to your next level and to become a different person and to learn something about yourself or your business. So this is a big question, and it's something that I come across regularly, and I'm sure you have done as well. How can you fail a lot and not feel like a failure? You start a new business and you're not getting any clients. You're trying to figure out what you want to do, but you can't work it out. And you tried a few different things, and you're just struggling. It can be tough. But do you think when you ride a bike, you look at children when you're riding a bike, they fall off a few times and they have a go at the engineer, they have a go at who made the bike and what's the problem with themselves, and they go away and never ride a bike again? No. They understand that they're going to fall off, that it's going to be an issue, but they want to ride the bike, they've got a vision of where they want to be. So where do you want to be? Fail forward, learn from your failures. What's your purpose? What are you trying to achieve with a business? If you're going to get the best business, you're going to need to fail to understand what the problems are. Expect failure. Expect to fail, because when you do, you know you're on the right track. And this is where divine goals come into play. Because then you can work towards them. You understand if you hit a obstacle or something that's holding you back, that it's a learning lesson that's, it's not going to stop you doing it, because you got your goal there, you know where you're going with your goal. This is where how much is enough is important. Because you've got this goal that you need to work towards, and letting go and letting God. Just working towards it and not worrying and stressing about it too much, that you're not getting there too quickly, or that you're being held back. It's going to happen. It's a law of gender and the law of rhythm. Things move in cycles. Just because you haven't got results right now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's impossible that it's not going to happen. Does the acorn get upset because it's not a tree yet? No. It understands that it needs to have time to grow. We can't just be this thing instantly. Have your goals defined, and it'll really help you when you do come across failures, because you know that what you're working towards. What is your purpose? The actual definition is the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. What are you actually doing it for? Because if it's something, I want to build a business to become a more confident person, I want to talk to these people to become a better socializer, you're learning from every different experience. So that's a good way of thinking, right, it's a risk, but it's going to help me get to where I need to be, because I've got purpose. I know where I need to go with this. My story being a coach as well. You know, my purpose, because originally it was not easy. And I was in a very difficult position myself. I struggled a lot socially and financially, and pretty much my health, my wealth, and my happiness were not on par at all. I was behind and I was depressed. And I struggled a lot, very, very much struggled a lot with a lot of things. Myself, I was very upset with the person I'd become, disappointed, and I just wasn't a very happy individual, and I wasn't doing the things I wanted to do. Now, I read a few books. Tony Robbins is a big influence, and listened to a lot of audio CDs, and really surrounded myself with good information and positive thoughts, and made sure I was trying to look for positives to become a happy person and to become a confident person. And once that happened, I started to really enjoy it. I started to really enjoy learning and developing myself. I was becoming happier and happier, learning from people who have been in similar experiences, and I was just good. I was getting myself out of this weird rut, developing who the person I was, and asking myself questions like, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I enjoy doing? If I had £1 million, what would I do? You know, asking myself these questions and figuring out what I actually enjoyed. Being around more people and figuring out how to be better with people. Very antisocial person. I'd learned how to be around people a lot more. And that became my purpose because I actually really enjoyed it that much that it helped me so much to become the person I am today. An entirely different person, very healthy, very happy. And, you know, the wealth factor, I've got enough money to support myself doing a job that I enjoy. Very happy that those three factors there. Now, with that in mind, I want to help other people get to the same level. I want to help them overcome from the barriers of bondage they're already stuck in and get them to the next levels. It's my purpose because that's what I'm really passionate about, and I feel very pulled towards that. Not pushed because I need to do it, I need to earn money. I feel very pulled towards it. It's something I'm passionate about. So this is another thing as well. You know, short-term pleasure blinds long-term purpose. Short-term pleasure blinds, long-term purpose enlightens. So have your purpose there. Figure out why you're doing the things you're doing, and learn from them. You know, just to get, if you're looking for a quick fix, you might get it, but it's exactly what it is. It's quick, short, and sharp, and not going to be there for a long time. Your long-term purpose is going to be something that you're going to really have for the future moving forward, and it's going to pull you and keep you on track. And the path might change, it might deviate and weave and turn corners, but that is part of the journey. And you'll become the person you want to become, because you're working towards something. You live your life as if it was impossible to fail, because if you look at failures as learning lessons, you know, take your definition of failure and change it. Because a lot of people are very harsh on themselves. It's what we spoke about before, turning your inner critic into your inner coach. You know, I've failed, I've messed up here, what's going on, why am I doing this? Change that to, oh, fantastic, I've learned how to not do something. Oh, brilliant, this is a learning lesson, I'm not gonna fail the same way again, I'm gonna learn little things from here. I'm gonna figure out how to move to the next level. And things always seem impossible until they're done. Nelson Mandela. Now, if it's impossible to fail, the world's your oyster, and it really is, because it's all a learning lesson, which is all it really is. You change your mentality of things, change the way you look at things, and the things that you look at begin to change. Very powerful stuff, this. Roger Bannister, prime example. And I could speak of a dozen examples, you know, dozens and dozens of examples of this, but he is the epitome of this example. In 1954, there were people that they believed that running a 4-minute mile was impossible. Literally everybody believed this. Scientists believed that the human body couldn't physically run a 4-minute mile. They said it was impossible. Nobody had come close to it. Nobody actually crossed that barrier, and they said it was impossible. And everyone believed it, obviously, because it was, you know, the scientists were saying it. How are they going to be wrong? And they've been wrong before, right? So it's a big thing, you know. They didn't believe they could do it. Now this guy, Roger Bannister, he rehearsed it. He was a runner and he kept on rehearsing himself, running this 4-minute mile in his mind, breaking through the barrier with a strong emotional intensity. He'd repeated this dozens of times, hundreds of times even, that he was going to run this race in less than 4 minutes. He was going to crack the 4-minute mile, and he believed it. He'd strengthened this in his mind so much that when he actually came to the race, it was like a formality. So he'd practiced it and he probably ran it in his practice laps anyway, and he knew that he could do this. Within 1 year after he broke the 4-minute mile, 37 people also broke it. Their beliefs had changed. The next year, 300 runners broke it. Now what had changed? The things they looked at began to change because of the way they were looking at it. They knew it was possible, so why couldn't they do it? High school children now run this in 4 minutes and less. High school. Seasoned athletes couldn't beat it before, and now high school kids can do it. Why is that? Because they believe they can. So change your beliefs as well on these risks, because they're not all going to happen in failure. It's not going to be the fear of failure holding you back. It's not going to be a risk that could end everything. It's just your belief and your limitation of yourself. Take the risk and push your boundaries and then get to the next level. Think about the good and the bad things. Figure out, a good thing for yourself to do. Have a look in the mirror. What's going to happen if I don't do this? This is a different thing to what we're looking at right now. But what happens if I don't do this? I won't go on this diet. If I don't start this business, where am I going to be? If I don't start becoming social, where am I going to be in a year's time? List all the reasons what's going to happen if you don't do it. What are you going to feel? You're going to feel confident not being around people? You're going to be around any people? Are you going to be in a relationship? Are you going to be happy? What's going to happen in 3 years' time if you don't be social? If you don't if you don't have a diet? If you don't start this business? You're going to have a good self-image of yourself? What actions are you going to take? In 10 years, in 20 years? What's going to happen if you don't do this thing now? And change your beliefs now? Now on the flip side, what's going to happen if you change? If you do this right now, where are you going to be in a year's time once you've started a business? Once you've started to take action towards building this business? Where are you going to be in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time? If you start a business today, where are you going to be in 10 years' time? A lot further down the road than where you're going to be if you didn't start a business, I'm sure. You'll be a completely different person. And also, if you're going to take the risk, what's the worst that can happen? Write a literally, physically write a list. What could happen? And this involves a few different things. You're telling your subconscious mind that you're going to do it. It's possible anyway. You're weighing up your options and you're figuring out actually there's not that much bad that can happen. For the potential good that it could be. If it is a bad risk that you shouldn't take, like touching a flame, going near fire, you'll figure out, okay, it's not safe at all. It's not worth the risk. But figure out the good things and the bad things. Write a little list. If it's something you're passionate about, is it going to be worth investing in yourself? The bad thing of spending money. The good thing is going to be a whole list of things. Developing yourself into the person you want to become. So figure out your options, weigh up your options and figure this out as well. Making a commitment to something is massively different to trying to do something. So once you weigh up your options and you figure out that, yes, this is something I want to do, commit to yourself. And this is what the quote says here as well. The achievement of your goal is assured the moment you commit yourself to it. This is 100% true. Once I listened to that video of this guy talking about diets, do you know when I decided to change that diet? Instantly. And do you know when I made the commitment to change the diet? Then and there. And also, do you know how hard it was for me to actually stick to the diet after committing to it? It was not hard at all. Because I committed to it. I knew it was something I needed to do for myself. I needed to at least try it. I needed to at least commit to doing this for at least a month. Try it out to see what it's like. And if it works, fantastic, and it did. I committed to it 100%. It was a lot easier. And I achieved it so easy. If I'd have just said to myself, oh, I'm going to try and go on a diet, psh, you're not going to stick to it. We all know this. I'm going to try and set up this business. You're going to reach building like blocks that stop you, obstacles and struggles, and you're going to get let down and you're going to struggle and slow down. If you're committed to it, you're going to understand that this is part of it, and you're going to overcome this quickly. The law of gender. There's a time for sowing and a time for reaping. At the minute you just reap, you're going to sow in your seeds of desire, and you're going to reap the rewards very, very soon. And when they're ready to be reaped, and you cannot perform your own self-image. And you'll make a new belief so strong, so all-important, so absorbing, so all-inclusive that the mental substance in your difficulty will be dissolved, and the challenges will begin to drop out of sight, and limitations will turn into unlimited potential. It's John Canary, man I work with. We've got a seminar coming up in a couple of weeks, and I hope you can all attend that as well. Send me a message and you can get a free guest pass as you are part of the mastermind. Now, this is true as well. You know, your self-image is still part of your risk-taking opportunity. Change your image you hold of yourself and take the risk because you know it's for it. And you know, the belief, but it's so important. You know it's going to change, and you stop having difficulties. You stop seeing the obstacle, and you just see the goal. Now the next chapter is your razor edge activities. Your razor's edge. Big, big chapter. Very exciting moving forward. And these are the little things that are going to really help you on the way, because the mindset now is really here. You know, we're getting the ideas, we're getting the thoughts implemented, we're really moving forward with this. Now the razor's edge is just doing these things and moving forward with them on a very practical, productive basis. Really excited moving forward into this one, and I hope you all had a really good time with this value on this, and I'm excited to hear feedback, comments, and some activity in the mastermind group as well. Okay guys, until then, take it easy.